Hi class, this is Professor Smith. I'm now going to be doing a movie on the domain and range of the graph of a quadratic function. We have the vertex is 2, -1 in the graph below, and they want us to find the domain and range. So the first thing we want to do is figure out what's the domain. Well, the domain represents all the x values on the curve that correspond to a graph. And so we're going to take our first point, the vertex, 2, -1, and it has a corresponding value of x equal to 2. And then we're going to do that for every point on the graph. We're going to ask what is its corresponding x value. So here I'm recognizing that that has vertex has an x of 2. Then now I'm doing it for x equal to 3. The next point has a x value of 4. And every single point in between has x values. And as I project or smash the graph onto the x-axis, I'm getting all the x values that correspond to a point on the curve. Those are vertical lines that I'm smashing onto the x-axis. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the left-hand side. So I'm going to also represent that even though the graph isn't on the picture because we ran out of room, there is a corresponding point on the graph that has that value for x. And then on the left, I have those corresponding x values. So you can see that it's going to pick up every single x value if the graph wasn't restricted to just between -12 and 12. And so the domain is going to be every real number. And so how do we represent all real numbers? Well, we represent all real numbers by saying it's everything to the left and then all the way to everything to the right. And everything to the left is negative infinity, that's decreasing without bound, to everything to the right, which is infinity, which is increasing without bound. So the domain is going to be from minus infinity to infinity. We have parentheses because minus infinity and infinity are not numbers, they're just representations. So now what we're going to do is find the range, and we're going to do that by now smashing the graph onto the y-axis. So I'm changing the pen color so that you can see the smashing of the y values onto the y-axis. So we'll start at the vertex, 2, -1, and then we're going to ask ourselves, well, what's the corresponding y value when I'm at 2, -1? Well, the corresponding y value is -2. So I'm going to smash 2, -1 onto the y-axis, and I'm going to get that value of y, which is -1. And then I'm going to do that for other points on the graph as well. So there's a value for -2 and -3 and every value in between. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take branch values on the other branch of the parabola and smash those onto the y-axis. I'm going to also take that left branch and smash it over as well. So we can see that the points on the left-hand side also are going to be compressed onto the y-axis. As we do that, I can see that I'm picking up all these y values from -1 and below. So the way that we represent below is we're saying it's below -1. That means it's negative. So we represent that range from minus infinity, which is below -1, all the way up to -1. And then we have to ask ourselves, is that -1 have a parenthesis or a bracket? Well, since 2, -1 is on the graph, that's the vertex, that means it's included. Included means it's going to be a bracket. So the range is going to be all values from minus infinity to -1. So I hope this movie on domain and range of a quadratic function was helpful. I will also do a second one.